Hello everyone, it's Ark here. Today, with this new video, I'm gonna be doing a little experiment with AI. So I am going to, as you see from the prompt here, going to take a original image from the internet, like random characters, I guess, and then place them into DeepSeek for DeepSeek to give lore to the image. And essentially, it'll just be like a bunch of shit. You can do whatever you want with what I'm going to do now. So let's get into like the main parts, like the main flaws of the video you're gonna see. The first is that you're gonna see throughout throughout the pre-generated content, you're gonna see me switch up on the prompts I use, due to the fact sometimes the AI gets really repetitive morally wise. So let's start with the first person who I did this experiment with without any reason, Moon Knight, who gets changed to character name The Hollow Vigil. The lore. The consciousness of silence. In the subterranean city of Nocturne 7, there exists a society where sunlight is considered a lethal weapon and a forbidden magic. The city is ruled by the Order of the Unblinking Moon, a theocratic oligarchy that believes human emotion is a volatile substance that attracts constant cosmic nightmares from the void above. Niggas can't even be happy these days. The Hollow Vigil is not an individual, but a mantle passed down between corrupted heroes of the Order. So, Moon Knight, aka Hollow Vigil, according to AI generated lore, is that a mantle. You gotta notice something about the AI. You gonna notice something here? The AI tends to place the world in some type. Wait, like human emotion. What is that? Why is that so like? There's a certain thing about human emotion. Actually, let me name another problem about AI before we continue with the video. AI has a large roster of original, in quotation marks, names, but they have a limited thinking about when it comes to choosing and assigning these set names. Sometimes there will be Peak, and sometimes you'll see the name Kaelen, or which will be spelled as Kaelen, pop up way too many times. Elera Vane. Well, it's gonna only pop up once in the video, but I can tell you when I was generating all this content, there was so many Elera Vanes, Vances, and Kaelins throughout the story that it genuinely I created a copyright law fucking rule where I will be able to regenerate a character if they share a name with a previous character. Cause yo, this shit disappoints me sometimes. But anyways, continue on with the video. Lord, my battery is concerningly low. I do goodbye. Anyway, okay, Day of the Moon cleanses the enforcers tasked with traveling to irradiate. All about a boss! Irradiated surface world to achieve emotion tainted artifacts and silence dissidents to escape the darkness. The suit is made of crypt crystal, a material that only goes under Nocturne 7. It absorbs lunar radiation and converts it to a shimmering orb that repels the night strays, ghostly predators that feed on fear. However, the suit demands a heavy price. The wearer must maintain a total mental blank. Any thought of love, anger, or hope allows the strays to phase through the armor. So being a human allows your natural predators to Loki know to Loki no longer give a fuck about your armor. Okay, the story. The last vigil. This the image you saw before apparently captures the greatest portrayal, the last vigil's greatest portrayal. The current bearer of the mantle, Vax Orlan, the only name that I think actually hasn't been copyrighted throughout the entirety of this, which is so fucking goated. The youngest to ever be appointed to the role. For a decade, he has been the perfect blank slate, an emotional tool for the Order. But for the last month, he has been secretly harboring a fragment of a spectrum peril, a relic that captures the warmth of nostalgia. He is walking through the Leviathan. Yo, if I ever posted this on TikTok, I would probably be hit with a bunch of that Rakai meme where he's holding the book and he has his mouth open like, huh? Anyways, a sector of the surface where the city's giant mental airships craft crashed. The giant orb behind him is not a moon. It is the eye of the true sky. A dormant celestial being the Order claims is dead, but Vax knows it is merely sleeping. This is 8 minutes long. I might not actually do this. In the distance visible on the right, wreckage of is the wreckage of a transport module that holds the last remaining human child. A girl who escaped Nocturne 7 because she was born with the rare ability to smile. If you asked anyone with a brain how that works, the AI works in mysterious ways. It rhymes, it yaps, but is it explained? Never! Vax is walking towards her to save her, but he must do so without breaking his calm. The suit is reacting to his internal turmoil. The dark armor is shifting from deep blue. Also, the AI is also kind of colorblind sometimes. It might see the white as blue, but I don't care. To a jagged black, the white cape beginning to break at the edges, as if he feels even a second of hope. Night strays will tear through his chest and consume the child. He holds the dual splintered splint rods, the silver sticks in his hands not as weapons, but as stabilizers. Also, the AI will never be too basic, you know. It's the one good part about the AI. It'll never be too basic. You don't think it'll take two little sticks. Who knew it'll take two little sticks and instead of making them what they usually look like to be weapons, it'll make it like some weird other shit that has a different function. But as stabilizers, they hum with a grounding frequency that helps them maintain the void mind, a mental state of pure ambient thoughts. The narrative hook. Vax is only 3 miles from the child, but he's being followed. The order has sent yo, yo. The power of never having dagger, dagger, spirits, physical, psychic hounds that can smell regret. He is calculating the exact mathematical probability of running, fighting, and hiding. The dense white glow behind him is actually the celestial eye beginning to blink. If the eye fully awakens, the blue radiation will melt off the metal armor, render the hollow vigil's suit useless. What the fuck? Actually, this nigga has so many nerfs, so many conditions. The condition man. And it's all about emotional things too. Or like easy to do things. The celestial eye has if that celestial eye wakes up, Vax will be erased. If if he smiles, he dies. What is going on with this character? But if Vax can save the child before the eye open, perhaps the warmth radiating will shield them from the cold vacuum of space. The final twist. The Night Strays are not hostile. Protective guards. They're protective guardians of the surface world trying to stop the Hollow Vigil from conducting a birth. Because they know the birth of a single human in ocean under the eye will trigger a supernova. What type of condition is that? Is that? Lord have mercy. Wallahi, we are finished. Nation. That will destroy Nocturne 7. Vax must choose save the child and destroy his home. Are you telling me the supernova won't kill him and the child? or stay silent and let the last spark of humanity die? Hey, Vax. Loki might have to be dead ass. Here is chapter 1 of the Hollow Vigil based on the original lore established above. Okay, I didn't need to even read that. Chapter 1, The Weight of Silence. The The Leviathan graveyard did not smell like death. Vax Orlan had expected rot or rust or the charred ozone of old radiation. Instead, the graveyard smelled of cold stone and frozen metal. A clean, sterile smell that reminded him of the vaults beneath Nocturne 7. One may ask, why do I do this? But this is for my own reading purposes. If I can read better and use AI at the same time, while being on my phone at the same time, I will be cooked. A crash site stretched for miles, a metallic forest of twisted struts and collapsed airship hulls, their skeletal ribs pointing at the sky like accusing fingers. He stepped over a shattered turbine the size of a house. His boots made no sound. That was the first rule of the audiovisual. Silence is a shield, sound is a signal. Vax's cryptic crystal armor absorbed the ambient vibrations of the surface world. The suit was a second skin of deep obsidian and glacier white, with a hood that wrapped his face like in a perfect featureless shell. Only a slit remained, a silver of darkness where his eyes should have been. He was a ghost in a world of ghosts. He carried a a splintered flint rod in each hand, cold metal resting against his palms. They hummed at a harmonic frequency, grounding, stabilizing, calm. The order taught that rods were made for combat. Vax knew they were for meditation. Is Vax just like smarter than the order or something? Like when fear threatened to break his mental walls, he squeezed the rods and counted the hums. 1, 2, and 3. 3 miles. The child was 3 miles ahead. The transport module's distress beacon had been blinking for 8 hours. The order had ignored it. They always ignored the surface. But Vax had not. He paused at the crest of a collapsed wing section. The eye of the true sky loomed behind him, impossibly large, filling a quarter of the horizon. Vax did not look back. He never looked back. To look at the eye was to feel awe, and awe was an emotion. And emotions were volatile substances. A flicker of movement in the corner of his vision. Vax froze. His heart did not beat faster. He had trained it too slow. To the east, between gnarled ribs of rusted freighter, a shape moved. It was low to the guard. Serpentine, with a body like smoke, a face like a hollowed out skull. It drifted without touching the ground. Night Stray. The stray did not have eyes. It tilted its head toward the Vax. It was tasting the air. It was tasting him. Vax closed his mind. He imagined a white room. He imagined a black ocean. He thought of nothing. His thoughts turned into static. White noise that offered no purchase, no flavor, no scent. The night stray hesitated. It hissed once, a sound like steam escaping a pipe, then dissolved into the shadows between the wrecks. Vax exhaled, barely. 1, 2, 3. He continued walking. The transport module was smaller than he expected. It had crashed into a depression in the ground. Its hull cracked open like an egg. A thin plume of steam still rose from the engine block. The child had survived the landing, but the cold would kill her within hours. Vax approached carefully. The crypt crystal armor responded to his movements, brightening slightly as it detected the increased threat level. The ghostly blue veins against his chest began to glow. Stop that. He commanded the suit silently. You attract attention. The faceplate dimmed. He peered inside the module. The girl huddled in the pilot seat, wrapped in a thermal blanket that was too thin for the surface world. She was small, maybe 6 years old. Her, her hair was a tangled mop of dark curls. Her nose had a smudge of grease on the tip. She was shaking. You came, she whispered. Vax did not answer. He could not. To speak was to break the void mind. Words required attention. Intention left tracks for strays to follow. He stepped closer and extended a gauntleted hand. The splint rod clicked against the metal frame. The girl flinched, but then he saw the symbol. His chest, crescent moon, stark and white. He'd been told by the dissenters in Nocturne 7 that moon clusters was monsters. But her mother had also told her that monsters only hurt people who are afraid. How do I know you are not afraid? She asked. Because I control it, her mother answered. That's the only difference between us and them. The girl looked at Vax's featureless hood. She searched for eyes and she found none. But she saw the way he was holding his breath, the trembling in his wrist. She smiled, fragile and uncertain. But it was a smile regardless. And in the darkness of the Leviathan graveyard, under the silent watch of the eye, that smile was brighter than any sun the world had ever known. Vax felt it. A single microscope thread of warmth entered his chest. He did not stop it in time. The armor flickered. A soft blue halo erupted from his shoulder blades. The splint splintered in his grip. From the shadows behind the wreck, 3 pairs of hollow eyes opened. The night strays had found him. The warmth that breaks. The strays did not attack immediately. That was the worst part. They waited. Vax had seen standard combat protocols for night stray encounters. The order drove them into every hollow vigil until they became muscle memory. Establish a defensive perimeter, restrict vocalization, suppress emotional frequencies, wait for the strays to disperse. But the order never trained them for what was happening now. The warmth inside his chest was not fading, it was spreading. It started as a tiny coal, just a flicker of recognition, of empathy, of something dangerously close to hope. And now, as Vax stood between the girl and the 3 strays, the coal was becoming a fire. The crypt crystal armor was reacting to the change. The blue veins across his chest pulsed like a living heartbeat. The darkness of his suit began to shimmer with a subtle electric light. He was glowing, and the night strays noticed. The lead stray, a tangle of skeletal shadows with a maw that cracked open like a broken jaw, took a step forward. It did not hiss, it hummed, a low gut-churning frequency that vibrated through the Leviathan graveyard and rattled its splints, rods. It's feeding. Vax realized. It's feeding on my emotion. He needed to surprise him now. He clamped his jaw tight and tried to force the warmth down into the void of his training. He counted. He pictured the white room. He imagined the black ocean. But the girl whispered again. The moon cleanses don't glow. They're supposed to be dark. Vax did not turn. He could not turn around. If he looked at her, he would see her smile again. The warmth would grow. The strays would swarm. I know because my mother told me, the girl continued. She said the cleansers wear black to hide from the stars because they don't have hearts. She said they're empty. Her voice cracked. Are you empty? The question hit Vax like a physical blow. Are you empty? He had been tricked. He had been trained to be empty. He had starved his feelings, suffocated his memories, and silenced every scream that ever lived in the back of his skull. He had become a perfect vessel for the Order's will. A weapon that felt nothing, wanted nothing, feared nothing. But he had found the spectrum peril. He held the weight of nostalgia in his palms for 3 nights. He remembered the warmth of his mother's hands before she was taken by the dirty spirits. He was not empty. He had never been empty. He was full. The realization broke his defenses like a crack in a dam. The white room shattered. The black ocean evaporated. And in that moment of self-awareness, the warmth inside him exploded. The crystal armor flared, a binding white eruption of lunar energy shot from his shoulders and lit up the graveyard like a second sun. The night strays recoiled, shrinking, their forms dissolved into ragged wisps of shadow retreating into crevices of the wrecks. Vax dropped to one knee. His splint rods clattered to the ground. The silence returned. The only sound of his voice, ragged, uneven, alive. The girl scrambled out of the transportation and rushed to his side. She grabbed his gauntleted hand. Her tiny fingers were freezing, but they felt like fire against the skin. Are you hurt? She asked. Vax could not speak. He could not form a single word. But the first time in 10 years, he wanted to. He turned his hood towards her. In the darkness, a single tear slid down his cheek. It did not freeze, it did not evaporate. It soaked into the color of his armor. The crescent moon on his chest glowed a soft, gentle silver. The girl smiled again. I knew you weren't empty. I could tell, because you came. Vax did not know her name. He did not know where she was from, or who her mother was, or why she had been on a transport module that crashed. But in that moment, none of that mattered. He reached down, picked up his splinter rods, and stood. The strays would return. The order would send dirge spirits. The eye of the true sky was beginning to blink, and if it fully opened, the surface world would burn. But right now, with the girl's small hand in his, Vax Orlan allowed himself one thing he had been, he had been forbidden for a decade. He allowed himself to hope, and that hope was louder than any silence. Okay, that was honestly pretty awesome. You see, the next character is Invincible. I can remember this one wasn't as crazy as the other as the other ones. Since Superboy Prime is gonna be in this at one point. Character name, the Vanguard. Expect a lot of Vanguards. Real name, Cassian Cash Vane. Alias, the Unbroken Spark. Lore, the origin of the Vanguard. In a world with a great shroud, a metallic blanket of pollution, and unnatural weather blocked out the sun for 3 decades. Humanity lived in a smog-chilled ecologies. Cassian Vade was not a soldier or a scientist. He was an ignition jumper, a deep core mechanic tasked with maintaining the fusion forge in Sector 7, a massive underground reactor that kept the city of Cinder Haven alive. During a catastrophic overload known as the Yellow Flood, the reactor walls ruptured, while everyone else evacuated. Cassian stayed back to manually push the containment rods back into place, an act that required no super strength, just stubborn, suicidal willpower. He didn't die. Instead, the raw, unrefined solar burn energy fused into with the material of the welding gear he wore, the blue straps, the yellow chest plating, the tinted safety goggles required for his work. The, the, the energy didn't burn him, just burn him. It repented him. He was reborn as the Vanguard, a being who does not emit light, but heat or light, but rather absorbs it, converts it, and redirects it as kinetic force. The story, the first flight. The image captures the exact nanoseconds of Vanguard's first public emergence. The explosion in the background is Grand Forge of Cinder Haven finally collapsing, unleashing a wave of plasma hot steam capable of vaporizing just residential districts. City officials had already written off the sector. With no other options, Cassian realized his new ability during the explosion. The steam and fire actually empowered him. As the wall of heat hits him, he does not burn, he charges. He clenches his fist and leaps upward, not to fly, but to create an atmospheric rupture. He absorbed heat to generate a localized vacuum shield. By punching through the fireball, he creates a shockwave that pushes the explosion back into the containment dome, sealing the breach. In the frame, you see a man who's not struggling. The vanguard is smiling because in the first time in his life, the burden of survival has been lifted. He is the only man in the city who can breathe freely in the heat. He looks back at the smoke, not as a threat, but as a fuel source. After this first jump, the people of Cinderhaven see the bright colors yellow, blue, and black. Emerging from the orange gloom, they do not see a hero. They see a living light cutting through the oppressive shroud. Cassian becomes the reluctant, one-man environmental cleaning crew, fighting not villains, but the climate hunting down toxic clouds, extinguishing volatile vents, and single-handedly mining the dangerous sky for reusable air. He is a hero born of the very disaster he was trying to prevent. Chapter 1: The Yellow Flood. The warning klaxons in Sector 7 didn't scream, they coughed. That was the first sign something had gone wrong. Wrong in a way that automated systems could not handle. The sound was low, wet and grinding, like a dying beast trying to clear its throat. Cassian heard it while he was knee-deep in a coolant trench, one hand wrestling a jammed pressure valve, another holding a half-eaten energy ball. "Please tell me that's a test," he muttered. The intercom crackled silence. Then a voice, thin and panicked, cut through. "All in non-essential personnel to the evacuation zones. Repeat. This is not a drill. The forge has been breached. The containment threshold." Cassine spit the last of his energy bar into the trench. Not essential, he hated that word. And Cinder, the only people essential enough to stay during a meltdown, were the ones too poor to replace. He was level 5 ignition jumper, which that meant his maintenance job was one step above the trash collectors, but his safety rating was 0. If reactor went, he went. No one would send a rescue pod for Sector 7. They'll seal the blast doors and wait for the fire to stop. But the fire was coming. Cassian pulled himself out of the trench and ran, not toward the exit, toward the east core. He knew every inch of this place. He had replaced every pipe, welded every shutter, and accidentally flooded 3 sublevels because he was too stubborn to read schematics. If anyone could stop the yellow flood, it was him. The corridor was already warping. The heat hadn't hit yet, but the lights had. A deep burning amber glow crept through the ventilation shafts like a sunrise through a dirty window. It was beautiful. It was also deadly. He burst through the maintenance hatch into the control deck of the primary reactor chamber. The room was empty. The holographic displays flashed red. Every single one. Above him, the fusion core, a massive sphere of rotating magnets and superheated plasma, was spinning out of control. The yellow flood wasn't the fire. The yellow flood was the sound. A high-pitched shriek that turned the air thick and heavy. Cassian's goggles fogged over immediately. He ripped them off and wiped them on his sleeve and put them back on. They were industrial grade, thick, tinted, and safety certified. They're the only thing between his eyes and the blinding glare of a star going supernova. He saw the containment rods, 4 of them. They had slipped out of their housing and were dangling uselessly. Without them, the plasma would expand, hit the coolant tanks, and turn the entire sector into a glass crater. He climbed the maintenance ladder. The metal burned his hands through his gloves. He didn't stop. He reached the platform. The heat hit him like a wall. It wasn't fire, it was pressure. The air itself was trying to push him off the ledge. He grabbed the first rod with both hands and shoved. It wouldn't budge. He threw his weight behind it. Nothing. Stupid, he thought. I'm gonna die here because I'm not strong enough. And then the reactor screamed. The plasma inside the core surged outward. A wave of pure raw energy that should have turned him into ash. But instead of burning him, it spiraled into him. It poured through the yellow plating on his chest, through the blue straps meant to hold his tools, through the tinted goggles that had seen too many breakdowns. Cassian didn't burn. He woke up, not in a hospital, not in a grave. He woke up on the platform, one hand gripping the containment rod. The reactor was still screaming. The heat was still unbearable, but Cassian wasn't afraid anymore. He looked at his hands. The yellow painting of his chest plate was glowing, not hot, not painful, bright, like a second skin made of morning sun. Industrial straps under his skin, where his eyes were gone, fused into the goggles themselves. The safety lenses somehow merged with his eyelids. He could see everything, every dust in the air, every crack in the metal, every molecule of plasma trying to escape. He clenched his fist around him. He clenched his fist and the yellow flood roared around him. But yo, over everything.